Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of sources and extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight, helping you get well-informed fast.
Hey there.
Today, we're plunging into a Netflix miniseries that, well, it might just be the most insightful and maybe unsettling allegory for America in 2025 that we've seen on screen recently.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating look. We're talking about Untamed and how this seemingly conventional murder mystery kind of transcends its genre. It really reflects these deep currents running through the United States right now in the mid-2020s.
Right.
And we're going to unpack just how it manages to do that, even while, telling a pretty gripping story on the surface.
And it absolutely wastes no time pulling you into that unsettling reality.
Yeah.
I mean, the very first scene of Untamed, it's a visceral shock. You dropped right in. July 17th, 2025, two climbers high up on El Capitan in Yosemite.
Yeah.
And then suddenly a young woman's body falls from that majestic peak, snags their rope. That image, that juxtaposition, the beauty, and then the brutality. What's that immediate contrast telling us?
Well, it's a really powerful statement right out of the gate. You've got Bana playing this deeply haunted federal agent, and Sam Neill as a park chief who's, let's say, compromised. And the series itself, much like that opening image, it landed to a pretty divided critical reaction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, some critics loved the moody atmosphere, but others felt the plot beats were maybe a bit too familiar, a bit formulaic.
Yeah.
But for our deep dive today, the key is that the park, Yosemite, it isn't just a backdrop. It becomes a kind of microcosm of the nation itself, that initial investigation. It's not just about solving a murder. It's really framed as this soul-searching inquest into a country grappling with, well, profound institutional decay, social fragmentation, a haunted past.
Wow.
And what the show calls an untamed wilderness of political rage and even existential despair.
So if I'm hearing you right, the show is really inviting us, the viewers, to see Yosemite less as this pristine national park we all imagine.
Exactly.
And more like a mirror held right up to American society.
Precisely. And by the end of this deep dive, you'll see how the series, I think pretty expertly, uses the landscape itself as a metaphor for a divided nation. Its characters become these archetypes of a fractured populace, and even its central mystery, which is flawed, intentionally maybe, that becomes a powerful reflection of our whole post-truth society.
Okay, that immediately makes me think about how the show talks about the park's physical spaces. There's this recurring line, right?
Yeah.
Characters keep saying the 4 million tourists who visit Yosemite each year, they see maybe 10% of the park. And this curated 10%, the easy roads, the big vistas, it feels almost like, postcard America, the image we like to project.
But it's that other 90%, isn't it?
Yeah.
That vast, unseen wilderness. That's where the real allegorical story of Untamed unfolds. It's presented as this dark, almost lawless space. It hides drug labs and old mines, shelters these marginalized communities off the grid, and conceals the bodies left behind by this corrupt, failing power structure within the park.
When you put it like that contrast between the postcard view and the hidden, lawless reality, doesn't it just immediately echo all that research we see, like from Pew and Gallup, of America's calcified political spaces?
Absolutely.
It feels like this show physically manifests that fragmentation we read about.
It really does, because that fictional landscape, it mirrors the empirical reality of American political life in 2025 pretty closely. You look at the research from Pew, from Gallup, it consistently shows a nation where partisan identity has become so entrenched that citizens are, effectively living in different realities.
Yeah.
You mentioned the 2024 numbers. Republicans identifying as conservative hit 77%, Democrats as liberal, also 30-year highs. That middle ground, the moderate center, it just keeps shrinking.
And you feel that, right?
Yeah.
It's not just numbers. It breeds this political culture of, well, exhaustion, for one.
And animosity.
Exactly. That 2023 survey finding 65% of Americans feel exhausted when thinking about politics, that really resonates.
Totally. And beyond just being tired of it, you see growing shares in each party describing people in the other party as not just wrong on policy, but like fundamentally closed-minded, dishonest, even immoral. So the park's separate zones in the show, the oblivious tourists, the resentful squatters, the criminals, the compromised officials, they become this physical map of a fractured social contract.
So let's break down those inhabitants then.
Yeah.
You've got the tourists in their RVs. They kind of represent a disengaged mainstream, right? Consuming this sanitized version of America, totally unaware of the rot just off the path.
Yeah, completely oblivious.
Then you have the Park Service establishment itself. That seems to embody America's hollowed out institutions. It's like the park superintendent, Lawrence Hamilton.
Sam Neill's character, yeah.
He's laser focused on public image, on tourism revenue, to the point where he actually urges covering up a clear murder, calling it an accident.
It's a chilling parallel, isn't it? It mirrors this catastrophic loss of public faith in government. By 2025, trust in the federal government had hit rock bottom. Barely 1 in 10 Americans believed it represented them well.
Wow, 1 in 10.
And then at the park's margins, you find the squatters, these sort of countercultural dropouts, rejecting the mainstream but still caught up in its violence.
Right.
And then deeper in the shadows, the criminal element running that drug up in the old mine. That symbolizes these illicit economies thriving in the cracks of a failing state, which kind of mirrors our own public anxieties about inflation, affordability, things like that.
It's fascinating how Yosemite, which is often called one of America's best ideas in the show, symbol of unity, shared heritage.
Yeah.
It gets completely turned on its head here.
Totally subverted.
It becomes this container for the nation's ugliest secrets. Child abuse, drug trafficking, murder, systemic corruption. This feels like more than just a gritty plot choice, doesn't it? It feels like an allegorical statement about the health of the national ideal itself.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the timing. We're in an era defined by these fierce debates over American history and identity. Some call it a revisionist movement, right? Re-examining, often challenging traditional historical narratives. The show seems to suggest that the very symbols meant to unite us are now tainted. The desecration of the park becomes this powerful metaphor for the desecration of the national ideal. It reflects a country where core ideas like the American dream or even the notion of a truly unified people, well, they're in deep crisis.
And right at the center of this decaying landscape, you have Eric Bana's character, National Park Service Special Agent Kyle Turner. He's set up as that quintessential sad dude in the woods,
Yeah, that archetype.
That classic American lawman figure, the stoic, competent one. But he's completely transplanted into this anxious, fractured present day, and he's defined by loss, isn't he? The abduction and murder of his young son, Caleb, years before. It's left him, as the show says, a ghost of a man.
Absolutely. Alienated, drinking too much, literally talking to his dead son's apparition. There was that one review that noted his heart only beats when he's working.
Oh.
And his personal trauma, it really goes beyond just backstory. It functions as an embodiment of a kind of national malaise. His grief isn't just personal, it's for a lost future, a shattered sense of safety and order. And that resonates so deeply with the pervasive economic and social anxiety of the mid-2020s in America.
You can feel it.
Yeah, you look at those Gallup polls from 2025, majority's worried a great deal about the economy, healthcare costs, the future of Social Security.
It's palpable, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember seeing that stat. 6 in 10 Americans reporting the economy forced them to rethink or delay major life plans.
Yeah.
Marriage, buying a home, having kids.
Exactly. So Turner's inability to move past his personal tragedy mirrors a nation kind of stuck in this grim political mood, haunted by its own failures, and this growing sense that the American dream is just, well, for many, unattainable now.
And thinking about him as a lawman,
Yeah.
he also represents the failure of another cherished American archetype, doesn't he? The rugged individual who can ride in and restore order through sheer integrity and grit.
That's a great point because he operates outside the rules. Why? Because the system he's supposed to serve is presented as fundamentally corrupt.
Right.
So in the world of untamed individual action, no matter how righteous it might seem, it's just not enough against this systemic rot. His eventual suspension, his decision to just pack up and drive away from the park, those aren't acts of triumph, they're acts of resignation. It's like a quiet admission that the wilderness, the untamed element, has won.
That idea of Turner's fractured identity.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, did the show itself kind of struggle with its identity in the same way? Because the critical reception was so split.
Yeah, sharply split.
Some critics called Untamed solid, serious, praised its momentum. But then others just slammed it as wan and plodding, tonally ineffective, even visually uncompelling.
That split, that critical schism, is incredibly telling, I think. The show tries to be several different things at once.
Like what?
Well, it borrows the atmospheric noir vibe from something like True Detective. It has elements of a modern Western grappling with frontier legacy like Yellowstone. And then it also tries to fit into the mold of a standard Netflix procedural.
Trying to be too many things.
Possibly. And that generic tonal inconsistency, which a lot of critics picked up on, it prevents the series from really forging a definitive and stylized identity, as one reviewer put it. And this failure to cohere, it's a perfect reflection of Kyle Turner's own crisis, right? He's caught between being a lawman, being paralyzed as a grieving father, and being complicit in his ex-wife's vengeance plot.
And that, in turn, becomes an allegory for the national identity crisis itself. You start asking those big questions.
Exactly.
Is America a nation of laws or just men? A meritocracy or basically a feudal state? A beacon of hope or a declining empire? The show's inability to maybe nail down what it is becomes this powerful statement about a nation that also can't seem to decide what it is anymore. The mixed reviews kind of reflect a divided audience looking for a clear narrative that maybe neither the show nor the country it mirrors can actually provide right now.
But Turner isn't navigating this landscape alone. The supporting characters are crucial for rounding out this whole allegorical vision, aren't they? They populate this allegorical park with archetypes drawn right from the fragmented American political scene. Each one represents a different faction or maybe a different response to this national crisis of faith.
Okay, like who?
Well, take Chief Park Ranger Paul Souter, Sam Neill's character. He's presented initially as the face of the establishment. Turner's friend, his mentor, this respected figure of authority.
Right, seems like the solid guy at first.
But then the reveal that he's the secret father of the victim, Lucy Cook, and worse, that his own selfish, cowardly actions led directly to her death. That's one of the series' most profound betrayals.
It really lands heavily.
And his motivation is pure self-preservation, isn't it? Protecting his reputation, his career, his legitimate family from his past catching up, his suicide. In the end, it doesn't feel like atonement. It feels like a final, selfish escape from accountability.
He really embodies that idea of rot at the core of the old guard, doesn't he?
Oh.
An elite class maybe preaching one thing but doing another.
Exactly. His actions contribute directly to that trust deficit, that declining faith in institutions that we see documented everywhere.
Then you have Naya Vasquez, played by Lily Santiago, a young, ambitious Latina officer. She's fled to Yosemite from L.A. with her son, escaping an abusive ex.
Right, she represents something new.
Yeah, she's positioned as the face of a new, more diverse America. She brings these modern big city homicide techniques into this wild setting. But she's also vulnerable, described as a little green and carrying her own past trauma.
And her partnership with Turner, the old broken white guy, that represents this fragile but maybe necessary alliance between the nation's past and its potential future. Their bond really solidifies when he rescues her from that flooding mine shaft. It suggests that this kind of fraught, difficult, but essential interdependence. Maybe that's the only way forward. It's a subtle message, but it's there.
But when that path forward seems blocked or fails, you see other characters turn to, well, vengeance. Turner's ex-wife, Jill Bodwin.
Rosemary DeWitt,
And that kind of feral wildlife officer, Shane McGuire. They represent that turn towards extra-legal violence when faith in the system just collapses. Jill, consumed by grief over their son's murder, secretly pays McGuire to hunt down and kill the perpetrator, Sean Sanderson. Why? Because she says the legal process wouldn't have been enough.
That act of private vengeance, which Jill admits destroyed her marriage. It's such a powerful commentary on the consequences of institutional failure. It reflects a society where partisan hostility has gotten so bad that opponents are seen as fundamentally immoral. And you see polls showing a significant chunk of the population believes the system needs a total overhaul.
Right.
McGuire, the ex-Army Ranger who prefers, the law of the wilderness, he becomes the perfect instrument for that kind of disillusionment.
And at the very center of all this, pulling all these threads together, is the victim herself, Lucy Cook, a young woman of indigenous Miwok heritage. She really is the ghost haunting the narrative.
Absolutely. And she's portrayed as a victim of basically every systemic failure imaginable. Violent home, corrupt and abusive foster care, and then ultimately betrayal and murder by the powerful man who was secretly her father.
And the fact she was pregnant when she died.
Yeah.
It just adds this layer of unbearable tragedy, a whole future extinguished.
Lucy comes to symbolize America's most vulnerable, most forgotten populations. Those for whom the American dream isn't just out of reach, it's like a cruel joke. She represents the human cost of all the things the series dramatizes. Institutional decay, economic anxiety, social fragmentation.
Okay, so we've talked characters, landscape.
Yeah.
But the narrative structure of Untamed itself feels central to this allegory. Several critics pointed out the plotting gets thick and murky, maybe convoluted.
Yeah, I saw those critiques.
Predictable killer reveal, maybe a twist too many near the end. Now, normally you'd hear that and think, okay, weak writing. But what if that apparent narrative weakness is actually its allegorical strength?
How so?
Well, the investigation into Lucy's death. It's like a journey through a hall of mirrors, isn't it?
I think you're onto something there. Turner and Vasquez, they're forced down all these different rabbit holes, red herrings everywhere, this big drug operation, the violent ex-boyfriend, the shady wildlife officer. While the real evil, which turns out to be more mundane in a way, more about personal corruption, it's hiding in plain sight, right at the top of the park's power structure.
And that structure, that feeling of being constantly misled, doesn't that perfectly capture the American post-truth condition we hear so much about?
It really does. In a political and media environment just saturated with misinformation, conspiracy theories, partisan narratives, the search for clear, objective truth becomes this exhausting, often fruitless endeavor. You don't know what to believe.
So the audience, just like Turner, is deliberately led down these false paths. It mirrors how a lot of the public feels, struggling to sort fact from fiction when there's such deep distrust of media, of government.
Yeah, it reflects that cognitive dissonance of modern American life. You're bombarded with conflicting information, and the very idea of a shared reality seems to be, well, eroding.
And then when the truth is finally revealed, there's no catharsis, is there?
None at all. The discovery that Soter, the trusted father figure, is the killer, it doesn't lead to a public reckoning. He commits suicide immediately.
Right, prevents a trial, prevents any sense of restored order.
Exactly. And even that late reveal about Jill's vigilante justice for her son, as one review said, it feels tacked on. It's a private confession. It offers no societal resolution. It just kind of happens.
This narrative hollowness, it really speaks to that deep national dissatisfaction maybe with democratic processes and outcomes, where even getting the answer, even a win, can feel empty and doesn't restore any faith in the system.
Yeah, in Untamed, justice isn't really served. It's just discovered. And then it kind of evaporates.
Which makes me wonder, is the show's ultimate failure to deliver a satisfying mystery maybe an allegory in itself, an allegory for the failure of traditional American narratives?
That's a really interesting question because the classic whodunit genre, it rests on this core cultural promise, right?
Chaos happens, a rational investigation imposes logic.
And the resolution restores moral and social order. It affirms that truth can be found, justice can be achieved.
But Untamed, whether they meant to or not, it subverts that promise at basically every turn. The investigation is messy, the logic feels flawed sometimes.
Like those critics pointing out a few too many last-minute rescues for just 6 episodes.
Exactly. And the resolution is just profoundly unsatisfying.
So maybe that suggests that the old stories America tells itself, you know, the good man with a badge fixes things, the system works eventually, truth will out May. Maybe those stories just aren't believable anymore.
Yeah. The show's inability to be a straightforward, good procedural becomes a reflection of the nation's inability to maybe live up to its own founding procedural promises.
Yeah.
The genre itself feels broken, just like the American system it's mirroring seems broken.
And the series ends not with restoration, but with retreat, doesn't it? Kyle Turner packs up his truck, drives away from Yosemite. He leaves the broken park, his haunted cabin, his whole career behind him.
He confronts his personal ghost. There's that final vision where he tells Caleb's apparition, it's time for him to go.
Right, a personal step.
But he doesn't heal the systemic sickness of the place he's abandoning. He just leaves.
He does leave that small gesture of hope for the next generation, though. That box of his son's old toy cars for Naya Vasquez's son.
Yeah, that was a nice touch.
But it's a hope that feels profoundly tempered by the brutal reality he's fleeing. His escape ultimately is an individualist solution to a collective problem. It's like a quiet admission of powerlessness.
And that resonates, doesn't it, with a nation facing this grim political mood, this desire for change, but with no real consensus on how to get there.
I think the true meaning of Untamed really lies in its title. The series isn't ultimately just about solving a murder in the wilderness. It's about the untamed forces that seem to define the American social and political landscape right now.
What forces are those, do you think?
Well, these primal forces of grief, tribal rage, this profound distrust, this existential anxiety, things that our institutions and our shared narratives just don't seem capable of containing anymore.
So like its flawed protagonist, America in 2025 is haunted, divided, driving away from a past it can't seem to fix, into a future it can't quite define yet.
Exactly. Untamed, with all its beautiful, moody atmosphere, and yes, its frustratingly convoluted plot, it might be the perfect, imperfect Western for a nation that feels lost in its own woods.
Which leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What new symbols, if any, can America find to unite a nation that feels so deeply fractured?
That is the question.